Hi and welcome to a British audiophile. For those of you who don't know me already, my name is Taryn. A little while ago I reviewed the Wilsington R8 tube amplifier. That's supplied by global distributor China Hifi, and it's fair to say that I was fairly impressed with that amplifier, giving it an outstanding, and rightly so. It offers excellent all-round performance for the money. But one of the criticisms of that amplifier could be that it doesn't have the typical tube sound, or at least the sound that most people associate with tubes. Now, it's possible to change the sound by tube rolling. That's where you switch out one set of tubes for the other. But I'm talking about the tubes that it comes with as standard. And when I was looking at the China Hifi website, another amplifier caught my eye. The Reisong BoyuuRange A50 Mark III amplifier that retails on the China Hifi website for $650. Okay, once you've added taxes and shipping, it's likely to be about £800 here in the UK. By the way, from this point onwards, it's just going to be referred to as the A50 for obvious reasons. Now, what struck me about this particular amplifier was that it's Class A, it's single-ended triode, it has no negative feedback, and it runs 300B power output tubes. Now, don't worry if none of that made any sense to you. I'll explain what that means later. All I need to say for now is that for many tube aficionados, this is the Holy Grail when it comes to tube amplifiers. Try and find another one for less than £2,000. I think you'll struggle. So at £800 here in the UK delivered to your door, it seems like a veritable bargain. Let's see if it's too good to be true. The Reisong BoyuuRange A50 Mark III is a single-ended Class A tube amplifier, producing 7.6 watts per channel. That's to be expected with this type of design. It may not be quite as substantial as the Wilsington R8, but it's still very impressively built, weighing 18 kilograms or 40 pounds. It's what I'd call a 3/4 size unit, being 375 millimeters wide or 14.8 inches. Unlike the Wilsington R8, where the PS vane tubes will set you back an additional $400 to $500 if you want a full set, they come standard on the A50. There are fewer tubes, two 6N8Ps on the preamp voltage stage and two 300Bs on the power output stage. The central 5Z3 PAT tube rectifies the incoming AC mains into DC. The power switch is on the side and it takes a few seconds for the tubes to warm up and the amp is ready to go. This is a purest piece, there's no remote control. All you get is an input selector on the left and a volume control on the right. Sandwiched between them are two VU meters that you'll struggle to see move unless you're fairly close up. The rear has an IEC AC connector, speaker binding posts that allow you to connect an 8 ohm or a 4 ohm speaker load. You can use up to 3 analog sources via the RCA connections. What's the big deal about this single-ended triode Class A amplifier with no negative feedback running 300B triode output tubes? Well, it's the simplest type of tube amplifier there is, and some would say because of that it's also the purest type of amplifier there is, due to having the fewest amount of components in the signal path. Most amplifiers are push-pull. They have two tubes or transistors working in anti-phase. The speaker or load is connected across both devices, which sums the output but allows non-linear distortions in the output devices to be subtracted from each other. Push-pull amplifiers can be biased in Class A, where the current flows through both devices the entire time, or in Class AB, where the current flows alternatively in each output device. Single-ended amplifiers are almost always Class A. The output is generated by using just one output device, although it is possible to produce parallel versions with more devices. Single-ended amplifiers come with various types of tubes, but the simplest type of tube has just 3 elements, and that's what we have here in the A50, the 300B triode. One of the appealing things about using a triode like the 300B is that it's very linear in its response. It means you can get away with no negative feedback in the design. Negative feedback is used to linearize the response of an amplifier and reduce distortion. You find it in most amplifiers and it's inherent in the design of Class D amplifiers. Tube aficionados will tell you that it causes time smearing and it kills soundstage. Now Bruno Putsies, you can stop shaking your head. I just want to state from the offset, All my comments that relate to sound quality are totally meaningless unless you partner the A50 with the right kind of speaker, so you may not want to miss my section on setup and partnering equipment. Let's talk about what the A50 can and it can't do. Let's talk about what it can't do first. There's 7.8 watts per channel on tap, so let's get real. Even with sensitive speakers, if you regularly listen above 80 dBs, this isn't the amplifier you should be choosing. But if you're like me and you listen mostly between 60 and 80 decibels, even with moderately sensitive speakers around the 90 dB sensitivity rating, I think you're going to be fine. But that lack of power shows up in a couple of other areas as well. Bass control. Bass notes, by their very nature, require a big injection of current very quickly. This amplifier isn't really capable of providing it. So those who like a lot of bass control, this isn't for you either. And also it's a similar story where you've got a lot of very fast transients, whether it's symphonic music, rock music, or pop or electronica with a whacking bass line, a lot of very quick transients going on. This amplifier loses a little bit of composure when things get a little bit busy. Okay, so where does that leave us? Well, the soundstage is simply immense. Out of all the amplifiers I reviewed, the A50 has the deepest soundstage. The only thing to run it close is my Exposure 21 Pre and 18 Super Mono blocks, and soundstage depth is their thing. But dare I say it, the A50 is a touch deeper. Imaging has a touch of vagary about it, and that's because the leading edges of notes are softened slightly. That's with the right speaker. With the wrong speaker, they're softened quite a lot. But with the right speaker, it's not enough to annoy you, just enough to give this a slightly more organic presentation. The decays on the amplifier are simply glorious, and that's because the background is pin drop silent. Even with moderately sensitive speakers of around 90-91 dB, if you crank it up, there's not a hint of hiss, and the background is so black that allows those decays to reveal themselves as well as any amplifier I've heard. There's real body and harmonic richness. It's romanticized for sure, but lovers of simple music, jazz trios, jazz quartets, acoustic music and vocals will just be grinning from ear to ear. The upper harmonics and high frequencies have beautiful extension and refinement worthy of a great tube amplifier. I'm not saying that there aren't levels above this, but you simply don't find this level of harmonic richness and refinement at amplifiers around this price. If you can think of another amplifier that delivers that, you can slap me in the face with a wet kipper. Please don't do that, of course. I'm just emphasizing a point. To extract the qualities out of the A50 that I just mentioned, it needs to be partnered with good quality electronics upstream. I did all my listening with the Denafrips Pontis 2 DAC that I just reviewed, and that retails for the best part of £2,000. And also, let me make this as clear as I possibly can. You need the right speaker. I tried a whole bunch of speakers, most of which didn't work at all. I'm not going to talk about them all here, but let's talk about a few that are worth mentioning. I thought the Sound Artist LS35A may make a very good near-field system. Nope, the transients were way too soft. You've got to think that's a 15 ohm speaker, so 7.8 watts into 8 ohms translates to just 4 watts into 15 ohms. The Amphion Argon ones fared a little bit better. That's a fairly easy speaker to drive with a flattish impedance plot and 86 dB sensitivity, but not sensitive enough to get the transient behavior and the bass control to acceptable standards. The Sound Artist SC8B is in for review. That's an 8-inch paper woofer with a horn-loaded tweeter in a dual concentric design with 90 dB sensitivity. Transients quickened up quite a bit and the mid-range opened up. That's a good and not crazy expensive choice with the A50. My Product Response 1 SEs left me with the impression that this amplifier is capable of delivering more. It couldn't drive the Proax at the bottom end, rendering it an inappropriate choice, but the Proax were able to reveal even more mid-range finery. All of that just illuminates that I don't think I got the best out of the A50. I think the Sound Artist SC8B is a good place to start, but I think the ideal speaker would be even more sensitive, maybe around 93 dB or even higher. It needs to have super light drivers so you keep the moving mass to a minimum, and it needs to have a simple crossover, perhaps a simple two-way design. When you've got the kind of watts that you can almost count on the fingers of one hand, the amount of energy that's lost in the passive crossover network becomes quite important. I'd like to try it with something like the Tannoy Sterling GRs. It may sound silly, an £800 amplifier at the end of the best part of 7 grand's worth of speakers, and they're only 91 dB, but they're simple enough two-way design with a 10-inch paper woofer. I'd expect those Tannoys to improve the dynamics and the transient performance quite a bit, but also be quite interesting to see what they can unearth about the mid-range capabilities of the A50. By the way, if you've got low-powered valve amplifiers partnered to high sensitivity speakers, please do share your experience of using those in the comment section. Be illuminating for me as well as for other viewers, I'm sure, as well. Let's end by stating its full name. The Reisong BoyuuRange A50 Mark III single-ended triode tube amplifier is a difficult amplifier to evaluate. For the vast majority of people out there, I wouldn't recommend it at all. It has very limited power and it can only drive a select group of speakers. And even if you select the right speaker for this amplifier, the likelihood is it will only do well with certain genres of music. But it was never intended as a mass market piece. Who was it intended for? Well, what's that American expression? If it isn't your first rodeo. You really need to know what you're getting into with this amplifier, what it's capable of doing and what it's not capable of doing, and how to squeeze the performance out of it. It's for those people who also like to experiment, whether you're doing it to gain experience or just to have fun. After all, isn't that what this hobby is all about? But there's no doubt in my mind, if set up right, this is a very capable amplifier offered at a very keen price. And on that basis, it gets a highly recommended from this channel. Well, that's it from me for today. All that remains for me to say is if you like this video, please hit that like button, please share it. And if you haven't subscribed already and you like what I'm doing with this channel, please consider subscribing. And don't forget to check me out on Patreon, where you can check out some Patreon-only videos and some consultancy services that I offer. But for today, for now, a British audiophile, signing off.